And yes, I even gave one star. And I'm gonna apologize now for that 1 star. Hello, my name is Colleen Moore, and this is Cmoore-Books. Welcome back to my channel. As you saw from the title of the video, this is my January wrap-up. If you hear any funny noises, my dog Penelope, she is just out of shot of the camera. She has decided to snuggle up with me on the couch. Get a little peek of her. She's a cute little one, but I will forewarn you that there is the slight possibility that at any moment she could hear something outside and decide to defend the house. So just wanted to warn you because it happens on many occasions. So, but let's get right into it. I'm gonna go over some stats. I love reading stats. So this month, I read 25 books, which equaled 49,000. Oh my gosh, 4,929 pages. I swear I can read. I've been staring at numbers far too much today with work. I think it's rotted my brain. And then, so I'm getting all this information from Storygraph. If you've never used Storygraph before. So I love the information that Storygraph gives you. One of my favorites is the moods. So the majority of my books this month have been lighthearted, then emotional, adventurous, reflective, mysterious, hopeful, sad, inspiring, informative, funny, dark, and tense. So emotional, definitely, for sure. And then the pace, majority of them, my gosh, I can't read that. 15 were medium paced, 4 were fast paced, and then 4 were slow paced. And the majority of them were under 300 pages. This month I read a lot of picture books in preparation for my story times for I'm a librarian. If you haven't watched one of my videos. Right now, I don't work full-time as a librarian right now. I'm just volunteering in preparation for finding my permanent job. Because in the area, they don't pay as much where I'm living. So I'm currently saving at my current job to be able to move wherever I might want to where I will want. If I feel the job is right, I will move there. Good grief. But I need the money to be able to move. So I'm volunteering right now and running programs at my local library as a volunteer. So that's why a lot of them are under 300 pages. And honestly, as a children's librarian, I just love picture books. And you can learn so much from a children's picture book. And then 8 of them were in the 300 to 400 range. And then the majority of my books are fiction, 20 to 5. Not surprising. I'm trying to beef up my fiction. And obviously, majority of them are children's books. 7 romance. Gosh, I can't read that. 4. I think my site is going. Okay. I think I might have zoomed out earlier. 4 fantasy, 3 middle grade, 3 contemporary, 2 mystery, 2 manga, 2 history, 2 historical. I don't know what the difference between historical and history is. 2 graphic novels. Then we got some nature, all one thriller, 1 religious book, 1 horror book, and 1 biography. What was the horror book I read? Sorry. Right, the Book of Cold Cases. Okay, it all makes sense. Okay. And I don't know what the tags mean on Storygraph. I didn't tag anything personally. And then 18 of the books I read were in print, and then 7 of them were audio. I'm a big audiobook listener. Not huge into graphic novels, but my star ratings 14 were 5-star, 6 were 4-star, 1 3-star, 3 2-stars, and yes, I even gave 1 1-star. And I'm gonna apologize now for that 1-star because I know is a favorite of a lot of people. It just did not work for me. I should have DNF'd it. And I'll let you know why soon. Okay, so let's get into the books that I read in 2023 or in January 2023. So we're just barely starting in 2023. And I will apologize, my doggy she has started to really hit the snooze zone and is snoring. So this first book is How Does the Holy Ghost Make Me Feel? I read this in preparation for speaking at a close family friend's baptism. He turned 8. In our church, when you get baptized at the age of 8. Right after you're baptized, you receive the Holy Ghost. And so I gave the talk on the Holy Ghost. And so I read this book to him as my talk. And so it goes over how the Holy Ghost makes you feel the different ways. And then I gave him the book afterwards. That way he would have it and know for future times, and he could look up the different scriptures that the book shares. So it's a really good book. I highly recommend it. And then I read Spy X Family Volume 2. I am officially obsessed with this manga. It's actually the first manga that I read was Spy X Family Volume 1. Cannot recommend enough. I am currently in the middle of Volume 3. I got it for my January TBR ring toss. So the Spy X Family is about the dad. So it's like a found family, but the weirdest found family you could ever find. So the dad in the story, he's a spy and he has to put together a family for his mission. And so he goes to an orphanage and gets himself a daughter. That's the little girl that you see on the screen. And she just happens to be a telepath. And then he happens to find a woman and he's like, would you want to get married? And she agrees and they get married and they become this weird little family. She just happens to be an assassin and none of them know what they truly are. So it makes for really funny scenes because the little girl can like read both of their minds. And so she's like, oh, whoa. She's like, what is happening? Like, oh, these two people. So super funny. Cannot recommend enough. Yeah. Oh, so excited to continue with this series. Volume 9 comes out. I'm pretty sure it's in March. Although it might be April. I have a lot of pre-orders going on right now. Okay. Next book I read was The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. It has been a long day. Oh, yeah. So I will try not to yawn again. But I make no promises. So the Book of Cold Cases is about this girl. So I listened to the audiobook and that gave it like a new depth to it. So one of the narrators was Brittany Presley. So she narrates the young person's point of view, and I can't think what the main character, the younger person's name is right now. Normally, I'm really good at remembering character names. And I just yawned again. I'm so sorry. Shay. Her name was Shay. It just came back to me. I can hear the character saying it, the audiobook. See, this is why you listen to it, if you listen to it. Yeah, so Shay is obsessed with cold cases, and she decides to look into this cold case of these murders in her town that happened in the 70s. And this woman who lives in the town, she lives in this old house. She's like in her 60s or 70s now, and she was tried for the murders. Like she was like in her she was like 18 or 20 or something. But she wasn't able to be convicted based on the evidence that they had. And so she looks into the murders, and it goes like back from like present to past. So it's like dual timelines. So it's really interesting. Highly recommend it. So like I liked it, but like it just didn't give me 5-star feels. There were just some parts that it just wasn't my favorite, which is why I didn't give it five stars, but I still really enjoyed it, which is why I gave it 4 stars. So this is my 1 star, and I am so sorry for all the Colleen Hoover fans out there. Yeah. So I should have DNF'd this book after the first chapter. I know that now. And not even included it on my read list. It was my bad. Yeah. Here is why I did not like it. I felt that the characters didn't, it was marketed as a romance, and I felt that the characters were basically just having hookups and then sharing what they called naked truths. Like they would hook up, share some naked truths every once in a while, and then hook up some more. And that's all their relationship was. And I felt like they truly didn't know anything about each other. And so that just really personally bothered me. Like when you're so like in such a intimate way with someone, like you don't know anything about them, and like you've been with them for like a year or more and you still know nothing about them. I was like, what have you been doing all this time? Have you not talked at all? So I just found that really unbelievable that they literally had not talked at all. So yeah. And just the sheer amount of smut in this book. And that was my bad. I did not know that was what Colleen Hoover is known for. If I'd known, I wouldn't have read it. So that was on me. That was on me. So yeah, it's a 1 star for me. But I know there are other people who love that stuff, and I'm just not one of those people. So I should have just skipped it. So this is Shirley and Jamila's Big Fall. This is a middle grade novel by Gillian Wertz. This is set in Canada. So this is the second book in this middle grade series. So the first one, the girls meet over the summer and they solve a crime over the summer. And then this one, they're solving a crime in the fall. So it's like a mystery series. And so Shirley, she's the one with the glasses. She has like a Sherlock Holmes kind of vibe to her. And so it's really cute and fun to see like the mysteries and like how we're gonna figure it out. I highly recommend it. They are really fun, and the character development is great. So this next one, Pashmina by Nidhi Chinani. So this one dives into Indian culture, This young girl's always wondered about her family in India. Her mom never talks about it. And she just wants to know. And so she eventually goes to India and learns about her family roots. I just felt like the story, like there was something missing, which is why I didn't give it a 5-star. Like I just didn't get that 5-star feel. But I really liked the art style and the beauty of like the beautiful side of like the Indian architecture and like the temples and that side of that we were shown. But I just felt like the character development, like the story development wasn't all there. I felt like there was we just needed like a teeny bit more, and it would have been a 5-star for sure for me. Sorcery of Thorns. I will try not to talk about this for 10 years. I would probably, yeah. So, Sorcery of Thorns. About this girl, Elizabeth Scrivener. She works in a magical library. These magical grimoires. They can move. They have powers. They are the coolest things ever. And one of the grimoires gets out, and she by accident destroys it, and it sets off a chain of events, and things get crazy from there. Highly recommend. The audiobook is amazing as well. So good. 5 out of 5. This was a reread for me. I actually got the adult book club at my library to read this one. And I am the youngest one of the book club. I want to say by at least 20 to 25 years. And so none of them read fantasy like ever. And they were like, this was really good. And I was like, yes, score 1 for the fantasy. So this one I read as a part of my TBR ring toss. I'd originally chosen a book by Marcus Suzak that was set in Australia because my prompt was like set in Australia. And I really didn't like whatever that book was. I read 1 chapter and I was just not feeling it. And after 1 chapter, if you hate the narrator, or like if you hate the main character, and like there was so much cussing in it, and I had only listened to like 7 to 10 minutes, and I'm not a huge fan of a lot of profanity, and so it was just too much for me. And if I'm gonna listen to a book for like 7, 8 to 10 to 20 hours, I don't want to be hearing a book that's like every few minutes. So stop that one. Got another one. This appealed to me much more. So this is about this girl. She finds out that her parents have been hiding a big secret. They have been separated for over a year. She just graduated from high school, but they've been separated in the same house and just didn't tell her because they didn't want to shake things up while she was a senior. So now they're going their separate ways. And she's like, how did I miss all of this? She sort of had like a rough like childhood and had trouble making friends. She had really bad cystic acne. So yeah, she's had it rough. And then she doesn't really know how to talk to guys. I can totally relate. Yeah. Like, even though she's like a teenager and I'm like in my 30s now, still totally relate. Trust me, sometimes we never grow out of those things. I breed awkward moments like there's no tomorrow. But as is my life. So yeah, it was a cute like love story. I just thought there was just like a teeny bit too much like focus on the need for like her and the guy that she was like sort of you know what, that's a spoiler. I just felt like there was just too much focus on like sexual content in this book. Uh at certain points. Just it just felt unnecessary and just kind of like out of place. But that's a personal preference thing for me. As we learned from It Ends With Us. So, other than that, I really enjoyed it. And if you can get your hands on the audiobook, totally recommend that. Narrator, obviously, Australian accent. Love me an Australian accent. So this book I read as a part of one of my preparation for one of my story times. I did not end up choosing this one. It just did not have it had like a lot of text, and sometimes it's hard to get 3 to 5 year olds to focus if there's a lot of text. But it had such a good it's such a good story. So it's about the author's experience. Like she's telling her experience with the civil rights movement and through a dream and seeing all the events of Martin Luther King in his life. So it's pretty powerful. And I'm trying to remember why I gave it a 4 star. I think it had to do with the art style. It just wasn't my favorite. Yeah, I think it was the art style. This one was so good. So this is about the children in Birmingham, Alabama that made a decision to decide to march for their parents because they would be arrested and then they wouldn't be able to work and provide for their families. And the children are like, well, we can do it. Like, we can do this for ourselves and for our families. We don't have jobs and we want to do this. And so they walked through the streets to march for their rights. It was beautifully written, the art style, everything about this, it was perfect. I highly recommend checking this one out. This was the other one. So that one I just mentioned, and then this one is the ones I had chosen for my story time. Unfortunately, because people thought that the library was closed on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, even though the library was not, no one came to the story time. But it's okay. I really enjoyed preparing for it and reading these books. So it was not wasted time. So this is Martin's Big Words, The Life of Dr. Martin Luther King by Dorian Rappaport. So she just goes through and shares so many different words that and speeches that he had said throughout his life and throughout the civil rights movement. And it just shows the power of words and how you don't have to use violence to change things. That you can change the world through nonviolent means, through peaceful protests, and through sharing your voice and your thoughts. And I think that we need to definitely remember the thoughts and feelings of Dr. King, especially now, even in today's times, when so many people like to turn to violence. It's sad that no matter anyone's race, and white, black, Asian, Indian, Japanese, Chinese, there are so many times that we just turn to violence instead of trying to solve things through peaceful means. And I think that the words of Dr. King and Gandhi and so many others, especially words of Jesus Christ, can help us to solve things through peaceful means. So this is another one that I read. So I wasn't particularly impressed by the way that this story was written. There weren't a lot of words, and it was kind of confusing how the story was told, and it just left a lot to be desired, and the art choice wasn't the best. So yeah, it just wasn't the best told story. Like, it was okay, like, but it just wasn't, it was good, but it wasn't like great. It was just fine. So I just gave it 3 stars. And then we have I Am Quiet, a story for the introvert and all of us. This book won the Goodreads Choice Award for children, which is how I found out about it, which is why I had to get my library, and now I own it. So this book is by Andy Powers. This book is so precious. She wrote it for her own child, to help her child realize that, I can't remember if she wrote it for a son or a daughter, which is why I'm not using a distinct pronoun, because I honestly can't remember. So, but it's such a powerful story to show how introverts, that we have so many things to offer the world, and just because we're quiet doesn't mean that we aren't listening, we aren't paying attention, but we will open up if the time is right. I am very much an introvert, but I'm always willing to talk about books, clearly. So this book, so beautiful. So if you're an introvert, or you have a child, or if you are an extrovert and you have a child who is an introvert that might be struggling, or you're struggling to understand them, I would highly recommend picking this book up. It is so beautiful. So this next book I got for another one of my story times, Snow by Cynthia Rylant. It shares such the wonderful magic of snow and that feeling of the snow falling down and the wonderful things and the magic of going out in a snowstorm and like make a snowman and snow angels and just that wonderful magical time. I need a good snow. We haven't had a good one around here yet. But according to Punxsutawney Phil, we're gonna get some snow. I'll believe it when I see it. And then for my soon, I don't know how it's February already, but for my Valentine's one, I'm gonna be reading this book, Valentine's Surprise by Corinne DeMoss. This little girl is reading Valentine, or she's trying to make the perfect Valentine for her mother, and it is just so tender. So there were just some things about the art style, like it wasn't quite like a 5, but like I still really enjoyed it, which is why I gave it 4 stars. And this one was just, it left a lot lacking for me. I really didn't like the story, and the art was not really good. To be honest, the book really smelled weird. I don't know if it was just because it was old or what, but yeah, gave it 2 stars. And it was sad because it was a Scholastic book. And then Bad Kitty does not like Valentine's Day. Well, I'm gonna be honest, I did not like Bad Kitty. I could tell it was trying to be funny, but like it just didn't quite get there for me. I've read similar books like this, like that have this type of vibe, and didn't quite do it for me. I am sad to say. And then I went back into the Harry Potter series. I'm in the middle of a reread right now. I'm only up to number 3. But I have to say, I think that the third one probably is my favorite, Prisoner of Azkaban. So, of course, 5 out of 5. But, well, I do like the third film. There are some aspects that are good. But that ending scene of the film, and if you've seen it, you know, like the stopping on the face. I wish I could just unsee that. Just saying. So, Ghost by Raina Telgemeier. I read this. We did this for my tween book club. So this is the other program that I'm currently running at my library. So this was requested by popular demand. A lot of the kids in the club really love this author. And so I chose this particular graphic novel because it was the one that was most available, because her Gut series is still just as popular, even though they've all been out and they're really hard to get a hold of. So I was like, we're going with this one because I want everyone to be able to get a hold of the book. And I'm really glad we went with this one because it gave really good cultural representation and really good disability rep. So the main girl, her and her family, they move up to part of Northern California because her little sister has cystic fibrosis. And they move to a town that has a lot of ghosts in it. So it deals with Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. And so you just get a lot of interesting information. And I really loved the cultural stuff. So like I did enjoy it. It wasn't like my favorite, which is like I didn't get that 5-star feel, but I did really enjoy it a lot. Hence the 4 stars. And then the magical day arrived, where the companion to Sorcery of Thorns came out, Mysteries of Thorn Manor. And I absolutely loved it. Gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot tell you anything about it other than it is fantastic. Please read Sorcery of Thorns so you can read this. And if you have read Sorcery of Thorns and did not know this existed, please go pick it up and read it now. It's everything we've ever wanted. It's wonderful. And then I read another manga this month. I Want to Eat Your Pancreas by Yuro Sumino. This has a really odd title, but it is one of the most tender and heartbreaking. Well, I've only read like 2 or 3 mangas, but I'm gonna sort of like classify them in like the graphic novel like region. Like I bawled so much. So if when and if you read this, I totally recommend that you read this. Please bring a box of tissues with you. So about this boy, he somehow reads. Him and this girl, they meet up. Their paths cross at this doctor's office. She backs and leaves her journal in the waiting room. He ends up picking it up and reading it. And he reads that she has pancreatic cancer. And then she comes out, sees him reading it. And that sparks their friendship. And then it just goes off from there. And so I don't want to give you any more information than that. But I totally recommend reading it. And I want you to read it and to figure out why the title is what it is, because it will make sense once you read it. And then I read Love from Mecca to Medina by S.K. Ali. This is the sequel to Love from A to Z. So this is about Zainab and Adam. They met when they were teenagers in Love from A to Z. And then this is set, oh gosh. I'm not sure how many years in the future it is. I didn't do the math, but it's set quite a number of years in the future. And it was perfection. So I love these two books because you really get to learn a lot about the Muslim faith and their culture and their religion. So Adam and Zainab met in the airport in London, and then they end up meeting again in Doha, and I can't remember what country that's in. So this is In Love from A to Z. And so their paths keep crossing, and that's like their love story in the first one. And so the second one, I can't really tell you anything about it, but it is just as good as the first one. Loved it. So highly recommend both of these. And I just love learning new things about new cultures and learning about other religions. And it just makes me realize how much truth that so many religions have in common. And that's what I wish that many people realize, that like we should celebrate our similarities and not focus on our differences. So that's something that I really enjoyed, was seeing the similarities between my own religion and theirs. So, and then learning about all the other things I did that were different from mine, and things that I had never known about the Muslim faith. So it was so good. And then I read Tiny T-Rex and the Tricks of Treating. So I'm obsessed with this little children's picture book series. It is totes adorable. So the first one is Tiny T-Rex and the Impossible Hug. And then the next one is Tiny T-Rex and the Very Dark Tiny T-Rex and the Valentine's Surprise. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And then obviously this one. So this one I highly recommend to read to your child around Halloween time. Like, it gives such good advice about going out around Halloween if they're nervous. Yeah, it's just so cute. And honestly, even if they're not nervous, it's just fun to read. And if they struggle in the past, or like if you're like, you know what, we didn't we need to work on some of the things that we weren't as nice as we could have been to others when we were trick-or-treating last year. Maybe there's some things we could work on. Maybe we could try some new traditions this year. And this gives such really nice rules and guidelines for trick-or-treating in such a cute and fun way. So yeah, and highly recommend. And then I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I feel really bad for giving this 2 stars because I know it was Haley Bookland's like favorite book of last year, but I really liked a lot of this book. And I was leaning towards like, maybe I didn't know where I was leaning towards, like start wise. Like I was liking it. I wasn't leaning towards like 5-star feels. I was like the 3 to 4-star range as I was getting close to the end. And then big reveal happened. And nope, I couldn't do it. It was no. It's something that happened to someone in my family. It actually caused this person in my family to stop watching a film that we were watching over Christmas. And so I just couldn't. And so it's made me more aware of this trope. And so yeah, I'm not gonna tell you what the trope is because it'll totally ruin the book. So yeah, to not, it was just not for me. So, I can't. And then finally, my last book that I read this month is The Bookwoman's Daughter. This is the companion novel to The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek, which I love both of these. I gave them both 5 out of 5 stars. So I can't really tell you about this one because it'll give major spoilers of the first one, but I highly recommend both of them. So The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek is about Cmoore. She and her family have this genetic disease that causes their skin to be tinted blue. It's something that happened, it's like a trait that ran through a particular family in Appalachia in Kentucky. You can actually look this up. It's very interesting. But it's set during, the first book set during the 1930s, and the next book is set during the 1950s. And people during that time, both during those time periods, and especially in the backwoods, are very superstitious about things. And they were very not nice about the fact that they were tinted blue. Even though it was a genetic condition, it had nothing to do with them being evil or a sign of the devil or anything like that. So it was, yeah. But Cmoore in the first one, she becomes a pack horse librarian. And so that was a project that Roosevelt started to help spread literacy throughout different parts of the country that didn't have access to books. And so she would ride through the rural parts of her area and give out books to families that were interested, and she would do her best to give them and try to get everyone interested in reading. And so it was they're such good books. I cannot recommend them enough. So that is the final book that I read this month. I hope you have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you would like to subscribe, I would really appreciate it a lot. So I also want to say, remember who you are and where you live, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.